What's happening, financial coaches? It's Coach Pete here, and wanted to hit you up with another video. One of the things that I was thinking about recently was my career path. It's been a interesting and fun one, exciting, depressing at times, hard work, and one of the phases or kind of stints that I did, it was more than a stint, it was a career choice for me, was to become a financial advisor. So I actually worked in banking prior to becoming a financial advisor. My father was a CFP, certified financial planner, and we ended up going into business together for a while, and that was actually about 10 years. And so I worked as a financial advisor and investment manager for about a decade, a little over a decade actually, and I really enjoyed it. And there were a lot of good things and bad things. One of the things that I wanted to talk about in this video were the 6 things that I loved about being a financial advisor. So some of you may have experience in financial advising. Some of you that are doing financial coaching may be thinking about maybe going to that next step, that additional step on the financial spectrum, where it's more guided, where it's more prescriptive, where you are doing some selling. I think all these things have a place. Obviously the financial advisor world is a huge segment of the services industry and can be very profitable. There are thousands of people doing it full time. So that is for sure. And if you have any more questions about being a financial advisor, certainly let me know. Although I've been out of the business now in a licensed way for a while. After financial advising, I actually went into corporate world and did program development as well as financial coaching alongside of it. So that's how I got into financial coaching, because as I was developing financial wellness programs, I became a financial coach because we were adding financial coaching. So the first thing that I loved about being a financial advisor is that I love ongoing financial education. And that's part of the job description, right? Whether it is continuing education, so you need a certain amount of CE each year to keep your licenses. In my case, I had a Series 7 and a 66. Conferences, I love those things. I loved going to knowledge lunches and investment update meetings and market update presentations. And I loved reading. I got all sorts of magazines. I love jumping on webinars. I love looking at kind of new theories, new investment models and all this other stuff, right? So it's just really interesting. And not because everything that I saw, I was like, that's great. That's a great innovation. A lot of times I was skeptical about it. So, there have been lots of inventions in the financial world and financial instruments, and some are just amazing. Some are mind-boggling amazing. Some are amazing in that how they are super popular and that they are trouble for a lot of people. So, it's just the breadth of stuff that's out there, I think, is one of those things that you have to get into, but only if you enjoy it, because otherwise it'll just seem like reading the back of shampoo bottles or something, right? Because I really enjoyed it. So it's just nice to go into things with some skepticism, really find stuff that could make a difference for people. And, it was just always interesting. 2, I loved educational events. Specifically, I loved doing the educational events. So as I said, I loved going to places. And when I would find something that I would really believe in, one, because it would fit a need for the people I knew, the clients that I had, whatever it might be, that was awesome. I'd be able to bring that back to the table and show them and maybe, change something very dramatically for them. So I loved being able to do those educational events, but also I love doing presentations, even the basic things. And as a financial coach, I think you're doing a lot of that as well, right? How to budget, sometimes the simplest things make a big difference. I did presentations on what you should think about when claiming Social Security, how to prepare for the expenses of college, really practical stuff. I really wanted the less of you should do something and the why of you should do something, because I felt like most people that would sign up for my presentations already had a why. Oh, I've got a kid going to college. I need to know how to pay for college, right? So I don't really have to spend a lot of time in those presentations. But what people were looking for, in my experience, was tactical, practical, how-to advice, right? People, in my opinion, one of my most popular presentations of all time was just called How to Cut the Cord from Cable. And it's not because people didn't believe they should cut the cord. They didn't say, look, this guy's going to teach me how to cut the cord from cable, but I'm going to go and see if I really should cut the cord from cable. I mean, yes, there was a piece where I'd be like, listen, the average cable bill is this. The average online streaming service is this. The average over-the-air antenna costs nothing for its service, right? So yeah, there's a little bit of laying the groundwork, but it's more about, I think, I should be interested in this, but tell me how to do it. Is it a lot of work? Is it worth it in the end, right? That's what people are trying to determine. We have a limited amount of time. As much as it is, we think as financial professionals that everyone should be solely focused on taking care of their finances. It falls down the hierarchy of needs for people, putting food on the table, getting to work, getting their kids out to school, all these things, getting the refrigerator back running, getting the oil changed. Long-term financial matters just don't necessarily consume people like they do for us. But so when people want to spend their time in coming to a financial or an educational event, I really wanted them to spend that 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever it might be. I did 2-hour, 3-hour presentations on retirement planning, those types of things. Really wanted them to come away saying that was a great use of my time. I learned a lot. I have some actionable steps. I learned a lot of stuff that I didn't know, and here's what I can do to start grappling with this today. So I love doing those. It was just fun. I was in my element. I liked being in a room with people. I liked being with crowds. I liked interacting with people. In the shutdown world, I've done presentations, for conferences and things online, and it's just not the same. In fact, I've kind of backed out of all the ones that I was going to potentially do this year because you can't hear people laugh. I mean, they're laughing at me, not with me, but nonetheless, it's just fun to be there with people. So I enjoyed those. I like the energy, but also like being able to see people react to stuff that was going to be very helpful. Number 3, I liked having moments of large income. So you could do this when you sold a product, and the times have changed a little bit. As I was leaving the business, the Department of Justice was coming out with the fiduciary rule, which is not a fiduciary rule, it's a compensation rule, really. And people were grasping with that. It wasn't such a big deal for me because I was salaried out of the business that my business produced. So I wasn't getting compensated in variable ways, right? And most of my money was coming from managing assets under management, AUM, right? So I charged a flat fee or a sliding fee depending on the assets, but I would just get paid out of that. So I was basically compliant with what I knew was going to come down the pike. But that being said, I could get a big client, what we'd call a whale, right? Someone who was bringing a lot of money, someone who's rolling over a lot of money, someone who had a large liquidity event, had a client that sold a business, a tech business, so all of a sudden you have a bunch of money coming in, people cashing out stock options, whatever it might be, right? So when you have that, all of a sudden you have, maybe you have a 10% jump in income. If you are selling life insurance, you can certainly do that as a financial professional, financial advisor, or an annuity and things like that. Sometimes these products will pay a commission, and they can pay a large commission. This is not a commission that the client pays out of pocket or anything like that, but it's commission paid to you from the company. So i.e., if you sell an insurance policy, there isn't an additional charge or a discount to charge to the client, to the insurance company. Takes the hit on that. They pay you a commission expecting that business to stay on the books for a certain period of time. So that can be great, and while I wouldn't say it's common, it is certainly possible to have a $20,000 life insurance commission on something that's not necessarily like, a CEO of a major corporation, right? I've seen it done. In fact, one of the deals that my father did was an estate preservation deal. An elderly lady had some kids and wanted to leave as much mathematically to her kids as possible. And so it made sense for her to move some of her assets into a life insurance policy. And that, I think at the time, netted him like $17,000 in commission. So that was great. Again, not an expense that the client bears, but, it can absolutely make sense. And that wasn't even, managing most of the estate, right? So you can have these moments. And if you're really a go-getter about it, depending on the type of business and the type of compensation arrangement you have, you can make a lot of money. Now, I will say that it is harder in this business. Fees have come down. There is more competition than ever. But you can also start the business smaller. I'll actually get to that. And those are actually 2 of my next points. Number 4 is the flexibility of working hours and what I call the lack of financial emergencies. So, flexibility of working hours is that you can set your own hours. You can set working hours if you want. I would say that most people if they want to meet with you and they are working, if you're not working with exclusively retirees, then you are probably going to do a decent amount of after hours work, after hours like 5 to 7 to 8 p.m. And that's just because that's when people can meet. Most people that are making, middle management salary, 6 figures, don't have the time to take 40 minutes out of their day to meet with you. Some can, absolutely, and do it virtually or whatever, but In a lot of cases, when people are dealing with their entirety of their net worth, they want to meet with you in person, virtually, whatever it might be. And it's going to be 6 o'clock when they and their spouse can get together and come on in or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of emphasis on those 5 to 7 to 8 o'clock hours. In fact, during the day, you're doing a lot of case prep usually. But that means you don't have to work Saturdays. Now, there's always exceptions to the rule, and I would break them all the time. If I had a client that would move out of state and they wanted to stay a client and they were going to be in town, they were coming in Friday, they wanted to meet Saturday morning, you bet. I would do that, right? I mean, I think that as a financial coach, you understand being flexible with your working hours, but generally you can work kind of normal-ish hours. Now, I will say the second piece of this is that there are really no financial emergencies. Even in the financial planning practice, when I am managing the money or I have control over those assets, for the most part, the client obviously can too, do things electronically. The market is only open. The stock markets, right, are only open during business hours. There are no financial emergencies where I need $2,000 to repair my car. When there are financial emergencies like that, most people will just charge it to a credit card and kind of sort it out later. So the nice thing about this is that opposed to being a 24-hour tow truck driver, where you could get called at 3 in the morning, and you will likely get called at 3 in the morning at some point, that just doesn't happen. And in some cases, what you would get is a voicemail after hours, and I usually listen to it just to kind of make sure, but usually was call me back tomorrow, or if you get this information, let me know, or what's going on with the market or whatever it is. But it wasn't something like, I'm sitting here in an office and I need the balance on my IRA, please call me immediately, right? It's just that's not stuff that happens. And in most cases, web portals for your finances are so good that you can get all your information on your app or on the website anyway. So that was really nice. It just meant that also what I liked about that is that when people are tuned out of their finances, which tend to be right around the holidays, right around the time that you want to take time off. So your Christmases can start pretty early. Most people are not going to come in on the 5th of July because they are taking a long weekend too, whatever it might be. So those times when you have long weekends and you want to take them, it's the same thing. You kind of get those as well. It's the opposite of retail, as opposed to being home on a Thanksgiving, you might be working because you're in retail, but it's not that case. Nobody meets on Thanksgiving with their financial advisor. So I really like that too. It was just a very predictable and expected working hour relationship, or arrangement, I should say. Number 5, the ability to work digitally with a small financial footprint. Now, while I'll say a small financial footprint, it can't be no financial footprint. I mean, the annual cost of the licenses and the continuing education in a licensed world is kind of expensive. And for me, not only did I have clients in my own state, I had clients in, I think, like 10 or 11 other states. And while a non-resident producer can have a license in other states, sometimes it was pretty cheap, maybe $100 to have that license for the year. Some states were a little more expensive, a few $100s to have a license for that year. But when you add up, a few $100 times 10 plus your resident state, you're probably looking at a few $1,000s a year in licenses, right? Between insurance licenses and securities licenses and all those different types of things. Maybe you have a deposit broker arrangement or something like that for banks or whatever it might be, so you probably have a few $1,000s of that. Maybe you have an office. I think most people should. Maybe it's out of your house. But even in my office, I did a lot of things virtually. So we were setting up webcams, internet streaming, microphones, all that type of stuff to be able to do things over Skype, FaceTime. That is certainly kind of table stakes now. But, to do Zoom when I was doing it back in, let's call it 2015 or 2016, wasn't necessarily as common, but it was becoming common enough that I would say about half of my clients were happy to meet online, right? And half of them would come into the office, and it's probably shifted to 90% now, just the way it is. But it was really convenient. And for the people that would try it, they kind of stuck with it. So kind of like financial coaching, I think most of that, unless you're doing it at a local place, you are probably doing it online, over the phone, those types of things. That's how I did it. And so financial advising can be quite a bit like that. Now, for licensing purposes and things like this, you do have to have like a secure office. You can't have digital or physical files that aren't locked and all this other stuff. So if you do it out of your house, there has to be there's certain criteria that had to be met, things like that. So that's why it was a little bit easier to have an office, but that can be $400 or $500 a month if you have just like a co-working space, up to $1,500 a month if you want a dedicated space. So smaller financial footprint, certainly less than having a retail outlet or a golf simulator or something like that, but not no financial footprint. But a lot of that is flexible based on what kind of practice you want to run. All right, number 6, the thing, and obviously this is the big one, and it's pretty similar to financial coaching, is that sometimes you're helping people achieve the unimaginable, right? So in financial coaching, this is great. I've heard people say, hey, you changed my life. And it's kind of funny because sometimes you think you are just making some very minor changes, but what you don't see under the hood is like this big mentality change. That's really where I've seen it in financial coaching, is less in kind of the measurable results and more into the mental side of things. But I will say in the financial advising, financial planning, investment management type of world, it is more on the measurable stuff. Certainly there can be the financial coaching moments where people feel free or feel like they can go into retirement or, those types of things. But the few times where I was thinking about helping people achieve the unimaginable were the situations where I don't know if I can retire. And going through the numbers and saying, what do we need? What kind of income do we need to provide? And here's how we can do it. Let's convert this into an income stream for life. Let's look at drawing this down. Let's invest this there. Let's move around these things. And in some cases, if you can get all those numbers at a guaranteed level and say, here's what you can count on. And you can't say guaranteed in the financial planning world very often, but you can guarantee income with, some annuities, some pension type products, some income-based products, guaranteed lifetime withdrawal benefits, things like that. These products that have step ups, but don't have step downs on the market. So, there were ways that we could say, and I could say with people, listen, I can guarantee you $8,712 a month in income, and maybe more, but if all goes to heck in a handbasket, that's what you can count on for the rest of your life. And people sometimes would say, like, I never thought that was possible. I thought I'd be living just on Social Security or whatever it might be. And so there is this moment where it's a sigh of relief. It's a realization that the dream of them being able to retire, maybe they're not even retiring now. Maybe they're still going to continue to work. Maybe they just didn't know where they were at. And it's not me doing it, but it's maybe just the crunching of numbers or knowing all of these different levers and products that we can use and pull that can make these dreams a reality. And so in this case, like I said, it's less about, obviously it comes down to the mentality of it, the philosophy, the headspace on it, but it's our job in many cases. What we're hired to do is figure out how to solve this particular financial problem or goal or whatever it is with the assets and the tools that we have. And so being able to do that, and I've seen it. Sometimes I've been flummoxed on stuff, brought in someone else. I had some business partners in this space too, some other financial advisors in our practice. And so going to them and seeing some stuff that I hadn't seen before, and it's just great, to be able to see someone say, hey, why don't we do this and this and this? And there, we get it. And it was just amazing. And to be able to do that with people was great. And in fact, while I left, I didn't particularly retire. There were people there that had done this their whole career. And I remember going to one of my friends, my mentor's retirement party, and there were clients there, toasting him at his retirement dinner, just saying, I never thought what I have would have been possible without your help. And so, real people with real things that they wanted to achieve and real results. So that was pretty awesome. Now, all that being said, all those are upsides, and I did leave financial advising. And so there is another video, if you want to check that out, the top things that I hated about being a financial advisor, and that list is long. So if you're thinking about becoming a financial advisor, watch this video and that video, because you need to know the yin and the yang of it. So hopefully that helps. I'll see you later.